The webinars. We're in our third year. My name is Michelle Walford, and I'm a communications specialist at the University of Delaware. And if you have a chance, if you're affiliated with the extension or the institutions below or any of our sponsors, if you have a chance to ever run into any of them, thank them for this, because we couldn't do it without them. And this is truly a cooperative partnership. And so it's a great honor to be a part of it. A little bit about my background. I have a bachelor's in journalism from the University of Delaware. And then I did a journalism project for my master's degree, which was all digital. And I'm going to refer to that a little bit because I had a very interesting copyright issue going on. And so I started getting into social media. I have a social media certificate from the University of Delaware in 2014. And I was also an eextension.org fellow in 2014, and I specifically studied how extension should use best practices for extension on social media. So that's where we are, and I'm on a new computer. So I titled this, Can I Use This Picture? But we're also going to talk a little bit about video and a little bit about audio, and because I've seen a lot of people use content correctly, and a lot of people use it not correctly, and the law is very complicated. I will tell you, I am not an attorney. I've stayed at a Holiday Inn Express, but I'm not an attorney. I did vet this through Shannon's colleague, Paul Gehringer, who is an attorney, mostly specializing in ag law and risk management, but he did look this over for me. If any of you have ever attended any of Paul's webinars or presentations, he loves GIFs. He puts them in his. So I downloaded a GIF, which you're seeing on the right-hand side. And are these copyright? Am I infringing the copyright on this? So we'll get to that. GIFs are a new phenomena, and most of them are taken from film, and they're taken from TV shows. In this case, I think this was a Stephen Colbert show. And the jury's out on this. There is no definitive precedent for it. They are so ubiquitous now in social media that they're pretty much, what I was reading up on them yesterday was that they fall into the area of fair use. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But I did want to shout out a thank you to Paul for looking this over and making sure I wasn't saying anything that was legally incorrect. We're going to talk about what is copyright, how you work with digital images and the different licensing terms you have, working with people, a little bit about audio content, text and printed materials, how to give attribution, and what fair use is. And then I did promise a little SEO tip on using images, and I put that in at the last minute. So this is the dictionary.com definition of copyright. And it's yours and mine and anyone else listening. It's our right if we create something that we have exclusive rights to it. And anything after 1978, it is protected for 70 years after our death. So anyway, so that you get the idea. And this would apply to artwork, to blogs, to anything you've written down, anything that you've photographed, filmed, or recorded. And a copyright comes into existence the moment the original work of expression is captured in a tangible form. So this is on paper, in published, self-publishing, it doesn't matter. And it can be anything that's published on the web. If you create something while employed and under the scope of normal duties, then typically the copyright rests with the employer. So when I go out into the back here and take pictures of the master gardeners and take bugs and things like that, that's owned by the University of Delaware because I'm shooting it on their time with their camera. If I go out on my lunch break, that may be a little bit different. So again, here's another GIF with James Corden, which if you've watched his carpool karaoke, you know where that comes from. So I just thought that was kind of funny. So how many of us have grabbed, poached, used, borrowed an image from a Bing or a Google search? That's a rhetorical question. You can type that in if you want. I've done it. I'll admit it. I've done it. Just citing it, a lot of people think that if I cite it, this came from Shenandoah, UMD, it's okay. That's not necessarily the way that goes. It's actually not okay. And the best way for you to obtain images and audio is to use content that flows through creativecommons.org. And this is normally where I go to. If I don't have a picture of a horse and I need one to fit a certain thing, we have some sort of a license to it. If it is your own original material, I strongly urge you to source yourself, because it will get lost in the mix. Once something is shared a couple times, nobody knows where that original image came from. So source your own images. It would be very important to do that. So what is infringement? Infringement is when someone reproduces the work, someone takes the work and changes it or derives something different from it. So the term derivative going forward means change. So if I take a photograph and I turn it into a watercolor, I've made a derivative of it. Can I do that? So it depends on the license. I cannot distribute copies of that work and profit from it, sell it or make any kind of profit, or put it into a website where I'm getting ads. That's also an association. So I'm not selling the image, but because that image is so fantastic, I'm making maybe money from the ads on it. So you have to kind of look at that. I can't perform somebody's song publicly and not give them credit for it. So this is what infringement is according to copyright.gov. Now you'll say, well, I've heard a lot of people perform Beatles songs at a cafe or something like that. Well, there's some leeway with that, and so we'll get into fair use in a little bit. This is an example of a copyright infringement of a photo that I took. The one on the left is of we had a event back in 2011 called Safe Kids Day. And this gentleman was our county sheriff. He was one of many first responders and law enforcement people on the site. They handed out things to kids. It was a wonderful day, did a very nice thing. So I published this, and I published this on our Flickr account called University of Delaware, Carville. That's our Flickr account. It's had 153 views. And by default, this is the license that comes up, all rights reserved. This is the logo, the little copyright symbol. So when you see that, it's copyrighted. It doesn't mean if you don't see it, it isn't copyrighted. So that's really an important thing to remember. But in the case of Flickr, they will do that for you initially. And then as the photographer, I can change that, or as the owner of the photograph, I can change that. But in this case, I did not. However, fast forward a few years, and I'm not making a judgment on Sheriff Christopher, but he took the state of Delaware to court because he wanted to enlarge his powers. He basically served court papers and things like that, and sheriff sales. He wanted law enforcement powers, and he sued the state of Delaware. And when he did that, he became newsworthy. He became national news. It became a real left and right debate, political debate, and particularly in Delaware, but it did go national. And this is the Huffington Post taking our photograph, and it's much deteriorated in quality. They're citing it as being from Facebook. Well, I don't know where they got that, but chances are someone at this stage of the game, and let me see if I can get a pointer here. Bear with me 1 second, see if I can find a mouse pointer. Someone took my photograph or our photograph and maybe shared it on Facebook, but this is where it lost its ownership somewhere along the line. They, in turn, published it and they used it without permission, and they attributed it wrongly. Then this is an example of someone taking that same photograph and photoshopping it. So they put the the House legislator, or rather this Delaware legislative building in the background. And this was then Beau Biden at the time. He was our attorney general. And so bloggers were using it. And I called this person out and said, hey, this is a copyrighted photo. The University of Delaware doesn't want to get involved in any of this. We just put up a picture stating, now I could have not made this public and no one would have seen it, but what's the point of taking photographs if no one's looking at them? So the point is here that people don't pay attention to the copyright, and you need to look at that very carefully. So in both of these cases, this popped up several times. I've asked several bloggers to remove it. Some did. I guess this one hasn't yet. But it really now it's a 7-year-old story. I'm not really worried about it that much, so we'll let that go. But that is, now I can't advance my slide. Let's see here. I've got this annotation on here. Hold on a second. I'm stuck. Bear with me a second. All right, save. No, I don't want to save this. I went and used, all right, I'm going to have to stop this a second. Sorry, we're having a technical issue. It happens. Share my screen. There we go. Sorry about that. So while citing an original source is always a good idea, giving attribution to the owner isn't going to protect you from a claim of copyright. It's better than not giving attribution at all, though. Most people, if someone borrowed a picture of mine in like a personal photograph that I published, I'm not going to sue them if they use my photo, especially if they made an attempt to say this photo came from Michelle Walford. But it's not okay to do that. It doesn't exonerate you from infringing. You want to find out who the owner of the image is and get their permission. If it is copyrighted, a lot of people, I've done it. I needed a picture of showing a housing development subdivision next to a farm, and I was working on a story that was about the reaction of people moving into the area to agriculture. And I didn't have a really good photo, so a colleague of mine, Mike Mahaffey, takes a lot of great photos. He had one on Flickr. I found one I loved. So I contacted him and said, hey, Mike, could I use your picture? I'll give you attribution. He said, that's fine, no problem. My pleasure. So that's enough. If you can get a verbal okay, or I think I might have done it through email, that's going to be sufficient, and it's going to be sufficient enough to protect you. But if I had just gone and done that and said photo by Mike Mahaffey and not asked him first, he could make a claim against me. And usually a claim is just, hey, would you take that down? If you don't take it down, then you have legal recourses and you could even sue for damages. But most people will say, hey, could you give me credit or could you take it down? So that's important. Just giving somebody credit up front doesn't cut it legally. This is creativecommons.org, and that's exactly what you search for, and this is where I go to. And normally I just say Google Images, because Google Images, if I'm looking for a photo, that is, Google Images will pull from all of these other sources. If you just want a Pixabay, or I just want Wikimedia, I can click that and I'm only going to get those. If I do Google Images, I will get everything, because Google is very, very friendly. If you publish something on Flickr, it's going to hit Google within 2 days. So this is normally what I do. And then up here, you can choose your search criteria. So I might type in horse, I might type in equine, I might type in irrigation, I might type in apples. Whatever it is, you'll get thousands and thousands of sunflower photos. Bob, but I want to use it on a brochure because I'm going to be selling my apples. then you have to say, I want to be able to use it for commercial purposes. It'll filter that out. It's going to drastically reduce your options. But you can say, I want a photograph that I can crop, that I can modify, that I could turn into a watercolor. So these are the criteria you would use, and you should play around with this, and you'll get different results. So this is definitely a website you want to bookmark. I drag it right to my browser bookmark. I use it all the time. So if I take a picture, it becomes my original work. Many photographers will use a watermark. Either they put it on the bottom, sometimes they put it right across. But if that original work doesn't have that watermark on it or doesn't say copyrighted, it is still copyrighted. You must assume that every image that you see is copyrighted. And therefore that means it's not up for grabs. So that is the one message that if you take away is assume that it is. So for instance, with the University of Delaware, we have a Flickr account, and we organize our photos by events, which we call albums. And we do have a few pictures on here that we will make public, or we will, and it's usually never of people, but if it's a close-up of bagworm on an arborvitae, and it's a really good shot, we may relax the license on that to say attribution. That way, if somebody needs a photo of another fellow extension agent, for instance, needs a photo of our bagworm shot, they can go ahead and take it. And then all they would say at the bottom is photo courtesy of, the Delaware Cooperative Extension / Flickr. But we have full control over whether we do this. When we use Flickr, and Flickr is a great SEO driver if you want people to find your content easier, to drive traffic to your website, Flickr is a fantastic account. For instance, if I were a creamery, if I had a creamery, and say it's called Walfred's Ice Cream, I would take photographs of vanilla cones in horizontal and in landscape, in waffle cones and cake cones and sugar cones. I would have different ethnic hands holding it so that people could, I would have a whole library of maybe 300, 400 flavors or pictures of the flavors that my creamery has. There wouldn't be any people in it, but it would be my product. It could be wine, it could be fruit, it could be vegetables. And relax the license on it. Because then if bloggers use it, wouldn't you rather it say photo courtesy of Walfred's Dairy or photo courtesy of Cornell Extension than having it say photos courtesy of iStock? I mean, this is an opportunity to get your company, your business, your institution out there, so that if people were using the license, and people do it all the time, especially bloggers will go to Creative Commons and say, I need a picture of Honeycrisp apples. Your picture could be on there, and they would give you if they've gone to Creative Commons, they already know about the law. They're going to give you attribution. Why not? It's a little extra way of getting publicity. So Flickr is really nice for that. So this is a picture of a garden, a Master Gardener demonstration garden in Newcastle County. And we uploaded it to Flickr. I didn't upload this. I think someone up there did. The first thing I would do would be to change the name because no one would ever search for that. But they might want an example of raised beds or how to protect your vegetables from rabbits or deer. So this might be a picture, if I were writing an article about that I would want to use. But can I use it? The answer is no, not in its present form. I would not be, as a blogger, be able to use that. I'd be able to download it with this download arrow, but I would not be able to use it, at least without, unless I used it fairly, which is the fair use, which I'll get into. If I were another cooperative extension, say our friends here who are from Colorado or Cornell, and she wanted to use this image in a PowerPoint to her colleagues, that falls under fair use because she is using it. She's not putting it, she's not saying it's hers. She would give attribution for it. and she's using it for an educational purpose that isn't necessarily going to go online. If she's going to give this to a Master Gardener group and includes this picture in a presentation that's not going to be recorded or uploaded in a webinar, then that's fair use. She could use that. But as an account holder on Flickr, I can go in and change with one click whether I would like to donate this image to the world, which is public domain, which means I give up all rights to this photo if I click that. Normally what we will do is, I'm not sure what public domain dedication is, that's a new one on me. Attribution means if I click that, attribution means that anybody can use this as long as we are cited as the original owner. Attribution share alike means that if you do something with this photograph, you also have to share it in the same way I shared it. So you have to keep that license. You can't fix this and change this up and then copyright it yourself or make money off of it. You have to use the license. If I said it that way, if I haven't, you can, if it's attributed and that's all I say is attribution, you can do things to it. You can change it up. You will see here attribution, no derivatives. That means you can use this freely on your blog and you can put it in your PowerPoint, put it on your webinar, no problem. But you're not allowed to crop it. You're not allowed to turn it into a black and white. You're not allowed to run it through Snapseed or any of those photo apps and change it in any way. I can say attribution, but non-commercial. Attribution, non-commercial, share alike means, non-commercial means you can't use this and make money off it or profit off of it. And non-commercial share alike means you can do things to it. You can't make money off of it, but you can change it up and you have to share it the same way. So it gets really complicated. We're going to go over that, go over these terms, and then you can read them. These are the symbols that go with those terms. So the first one is that if you see this with the little person next to it, that means you can use the photo as long as you give the owner attribution. This would be share alike. Down below is by the owner, so that's attribution, but you cannot make money off of it. And then most of these will make sense. You can't make money off of it, and you need to share it in the same way that the original owner shared it. This is my photo, and you can't alter it in any way. If that's not on there, it means you can alter it. You can crop it. So sometimes you will see symbols. Sometimes you will see the terms. So it's good to become familiar with them. So these are the actual definitions. Now I got this from, and this is a fabulous website here, Sarah F. Hawkins, sarahfhawkins.com. She is a media attorney. She really explains it in basic English, probably a lot better than I'm doing. I pulled a lot of information off of hers because she just really made it so that you understand it. So these were some of her definitions. So attribution is people can use it, but they must source the material. They can do anything. They can Photoshop it. They can run it through an app or filter, no problem. Derivations means changes, and so you can use it and source it, but you're not allowed to change it. And share alike, okay, I'm going to make it attribution, but my license has been attribution share alike, which means you've improved it, you've done something to it, and when you publish it, you also have to share it the same way I've shared it. If that's missing, you could doctor mine up, share it, and make it your own, and you could copyright it. So this is, it gets a little muddy, but these are the definitions that I think are the ones that most people will use.
Michelle?
Yeah.
We have some questions.
Yeah.
If this is a good breaking point. One was you were mentioning the ice cream photo that you had. What happens if it gets used in a way that you don't agree with?
You could, if you have it as an attribution license, I don't know how they can really distort ice cream, but if you've given the license for them to use it and you have not put any derivatives on it, then there's nothing really you can do.
Okay. And then there's
nothing really, if you're that concerned about, like, and obviously with people photographs should always be copyrighted. But if you're concerned about how somebody would distort, the chances of that are slim versus the benefit of, if I'm traveling to the state of Delaware, I'm a tourist, and I'm going to Google, where is ice cream in my state? Do you want your business to pop up in a Google image search? And people do search Google images. So that's the advantage of having that out there, is people will go, wow, that's Walford's Creamery, or that's Walford's Winery, or that's Walford's Orchard. Look at those fruits. Look at those vegetables. To me, Extension's missing the boat when they're not doing it, because we're all about sharing and outreach. And I would far more want someone to use my picture in a blog. But if they use my picture of apples and write an article about how terrible apples are, I don't have any control over that, because I've allowed that license to be I've given that photo up to be shared.
okay.
And people are going to borrow stuff off the internet anyway, and gosh knows how many photographs I've taken that people are using and not giving me attribution. I don't have the time to police all that, but I think the benefits far outweigh the in the case of the man who photoshopped the sheriff, and I didn't like that, and I asked him to take it down because it was a fully copyrighted image. But when you've given attribution, this is an example. I have a Flickr account. I take a lot of botanical photographs and nature photographs. 95% of my albums, my content, is Creative Commons. In fact, I have even a Creative Commons album, and there's over 1,100 photos in there. And it means they're up for grabs, as long as you say it's from me. And I like that. I don't make my money off of photography. I'm not a professional photographer. So as you see on this picture of a chive bloom that I took, I have some rights reserved, and you'll see it's very tiny here, but there's a little person here. And that's the symbol for attribution. So I'm saying, feel free to use my picture, do anything you want with it, turn it into a watercolor and hang it on your wall at work. I don't care. I'm not expecting anything from it other than credit. And as a result of my doing that, my work has appeared all over the country. Google Oxford study did a study on how ducklings imprint, and this was picked up by Tech Times. I had somebody write me and say, hey, did you know your photo's out on Google News? I said, no, you're kidding me, which one? And here is an example of this website using my photo and giving me attribution. Now, if this has, can you imagine if this had been an extension, or if this was an article on vacationing in your state and they used your ice cream photo and they've given you credit. So it's a really nice thing. If you want exposure, to me, I like it. I think it's exciting to see some of my work go out there. For some reason, some of my photographs are hugely popular in Poland. Don't ask me why, but I occasionally will search to see where I'm showing up. And there's a whole mess of content in Eastern Europe that I've contributed to, and I just think it's kind of neat. But it is a way of strategically saying who you are. So this is what can happen, and they probably cropped this a little bit, it looks like. But I said that was okay when I published it, and dropped that license down from all rights reserved to attribution. Here's another one. This is, I took this at Pfeiffer Orchards in Woodside, Delaware. It's my photo of Honeycrisp apples. This one's been used a lot for some reason. Don't ask me why, but this particular website was comparing some of the big box stores and which prices were the best. And I did a search to see I actually searched Michelle Walford photos by Flickr, and this came up. So here again, they've given me credit down here. Now what Sarah Hawkins has said, here's another one. This is a school. So they're showing their school board. And for some reason, these two people used a photograph I took of wheat. And they wanted their photo to be of wheat. Okay, well, they say here, photos used under Creative Commons from Michelle Dorsey Walford and Michelle Dorsey Walford. That's actually hyperlinked. That's, I don't know why they had to do it twice, but that's actually the right way to do it. If you read Sarah's blog of sarahfhawkins.com, she will tell you that we really need to do better. Really, when you're citing someone or giving them attribution, you should put the link in. And in the case of Flickr, it can be a very long, ugly link. So you can just hyperlink a person's name and have that point to their Flickr account or to the actual photograph. But that is common courtesy normally to provide a link to the source. I also use Pixabay, and Pixabay is a photographic database. You may have others, and I would love for people to comment where they get their photos from. But Pixabay also works with, if you looked at the webinar from 2 weeks ago where I showed you how to do word swag, Pixabay and word swag work together. So Pixabay is a database of public domain photos. And that means photos that the photographer gives up all rights to. They decide, I'm donating this to the world. It's in the public domain. I will make no copyright claims. I thought I'd give this a try. It's very hard to get into this. They have a panel of experts who will scrutinize the photos. If there's a spot of dust on your lens, they're going to deny it. I managed to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 photos so far that I've uploaded. I've since thought carefully about doing any more because I do like getting the attribution for it. But these were photos that I donated to Pixabay, and I didn't have to do that in order to use Pixabay. I just thought, oh, what the heck, I'll try. So this one here has been looked at 6,000 times. It's actually been downloaded 633 times. So you can see you have an account, but you don't have to do this in order to use Pixabay. So here's an example here of Pixabay. You could go to it and say, okay, I'm going to be doing, maybe there's going to be an Annie's project on equine. I need a picture of a horse. You can go in and say, I need an illustration. I need it to be oriented vertical, oriented horizontal. So let's, as an example, let's take this third horse here. And so this will be the picture. It will tell you who the artist was, and she's donated 999 images to this site. She's not trying to make any money off of it. And she's even saying, hey, you know what? I don't really, other than the people in this Pixabay community, nobody's going to know that I took this. And she's okay with that. She's allowed that license to be that way. So I can come on here and I can download this now, and I can do anything I want with this image. Because it is in the public domain, I don't have to say photo from Pixabay. If you want to be super careful, you could say photos from Pixabay. It doesn't mean you can't say photos from Mackie Oral, but you don't have to. You can use this. You can do anything you want to it. So in the case of then, okay, so I'm going to download that. I'm going to download that image. And by the way, they do have a thing where you can buy that person a cup of coffee. All that is a way to donate $1 or $2 to the person. I've never received any money, but they call it buy them a cup of coffee. But it's a way of saying thank you to the artist for donating their image, but it doesn't compel you to do it. There's no limit. So that same photograph, I ran that through 3 programs that I have on my app. So the first one, if the original is in the public domain, then I can do this first one. I have no problem with it. I can change it. I could sign it. There's one app called Brushstroke where I can actually put my signature on it. I can sell it as if it was my own artwork. I can put it on a coffee mug and charge people $1 a mug. I can put it on thank you notes. I can do anything I want with this. I can go and copyright this yellow version, even though I didn't take the original picture, because I've done something to it. I've made it my own. If it's under Creative Commons license, would the second picture be okay? It depends on the license. If it's attribution and attribution only, then the person who does this can then say, well, it's like, for instance, going to the Statue of Liberty, sitting down in front of it and drawing a picture of it. It's your interpretation of what you're looking at. I took that public domain photograph and I decided this is the way I think it should look. So I've added my own artistic sense to it. But if it's attribution license only or a share alike, then I'd be able to do it, but I wouldn't be able then to republish it without saying this is what I did to it. This was the original. This is a watercolor based on the artwork, the photograph of whoever the photographer is. Lastly, if the image is copyrighted, I can't do what I did here to this horse, which is I used an app called Tangled FX. If I did, so there's, I'm dating myself here, but when the Beatles' White Album came out, they had pictures of the 4 Beatles inside of it. Well, I was a little kid. I drew, my favorite was George, and I drew a picture of him based off of that. That's called fan art, but there wasn't anything digital. Now people are creating fan art and they're putting it on the web and they're calling it their work. And that is also a very hazy, muddy subject, because fan art is technically it's infringement, but it's been tolerated. And the latest that I've read is it is decided on by a case-by-case basis. Certain schools, if you drew a picture of a tiger and you represent it in any way, shape, or form with Clemson, then Clemson University will say, no, we won't allow you to sell that or make any money off of that. You can have a web page talking about how much you love Clemson, but you certainly can't profit off of that tiger's image because they protect it. So it's decided on a case-by-case basis. So from social media, you cannot assume that the poster owns the image. And social media has really muddied the waters because the whole purpose of social media is what? It's getting your content shared. So you want engagement, you want to share things, but then when things share and they get shared exponentially, who owned that original photo gets lost. So when you post something online, that's why it's important to maybe put a little watermark on here or maybe say where it's come from. They could still crop it off and still infringe on it. So you do want to try to do everything you can before you post an image on social media to find out who owns that photograph, and make every attempt to try to know the source. You can also, using programs, Adobe Suites has Bridge. There are also some apps you can use. EXIF Data One is one where you can actually embed the ownership of the photo into the photo, into the EXIF data, EXIF data. So you could say this photo belongs to Michelle Wofford and here's how you could contact her. So you can do that if you're really concerned. It's a way to prove that it was yours if it ever went to court. Most of these cases don't go to court because someone will say, hey, you need to take that down. I didn't give you permission. Or, hey, if you attribute me, then I'm fine with it. But every once in a while you do have a case where if something goes to court, that's one way of sort of behind the scenes electronically with meta tags. You can put some branding material on your image. So this, again, this picture on Huffington Post, it said this came from Facebook. Well, that's lazy. Who's Facebook? They got that from somewhere, and they didn't even if that was where it originated. Just saying Facebook. Well, that narrows it down to about 7 trillion images. So that's just a lazy way of doing it. I'm surprised that Huffington Post are even using that. Here's a website that I like. I'm a fan of. This is a woman who has she repurposes materials for jewelry. She uses a lot of memes. She uses her own original content, but every once in a while she posts pictures in order to get reactions from her fan base. And if any of you manage a Facebook page, you know getting people to engage with you is difficult. We have 1,200 followers. We'll be lucky if 60 people see our content. So a way for people to break through on Facebook is to put pictures up that people will react to. And one of her techniques, and she's very clever when she does it, is she'll put pictures up, and here she says, "Thanks, Pinterest. To me, this is unethical." I would want to say, what Pinterest account did that come from? Credit as much as you can where you believe this photograph came from. She also does this, which is brilliant in a way, but unless she has 15 kitchens or 30 kitchens or 30 homes, she will post pictures of things like kitchens and living rooms, and she's taking them out of House Beautiful or Better Homes and Gardens or Architectural Digest. I don't know where she's getting the pictures from, but she'll post something like this: list 2 things you love and 1 thing you don't care for. And then her fans go bonkers. They'll go, "Oh, I love those stools. Oh, I love that island. That's to die for." And so people then react, but she's not given credit to where that photo came from. And I have a problem with that. And so this is where it gets a little tricky with social media. So as that is an example, I went on to Better Homes and Gardens. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, I'm an interior decorator and I want to get some fan engagement on my page about this image. So how would I do it? So I download if you're on Facebook, you know, if you're on the desktop version, you can hover here and a thing will drop down with options, and I could download the picture. So this is the way it normally would look. This would be my first try. I've downloaded the picture. I've uploaded the picture now, and just for the sake of argument, pretend I have a decorating page. So I ask my fans, do you like decorating with books? Yes or no? This is unethical. Okay, well, yeah, you're right. Maybe I should give this attribution. So this is better, but it still doesn't cut it. So I've said, do you like decorating with books? Photo by Better Homes and Gardens. So I'm trying to show some honesty here. I'm trying to show that this isn't something that I've decorated. I'm getting credit for it. I'm trying to be honest. But what have I done by doing that? I've uploaded the picture. I've tagged them, but they're not benefiting from it, really. So the right way to do this on social media is this, is I look for the actual original post, I share it. Then I can preface it again with everything I want to do. But now this account is they're getting the full benefit of, I'm getting benefit, they're getting the benefit too of the shares, of the comments, of the engagement. And if you manage Facebook pages, you know this is important. This is where you're going to say, we've posted this and we've got a lot of reaction from that. So this is something that you would, this is the right way to share an image on social media, making sure that you are putting it in its original form. So pictures of humans. This is where you must always err on the side of caution. These 2 images here were taken at a Master Gardener open house. And I carry around with me, and I have a little cross shoulder bag, and I carry with me little like wait staff clipboards with photo releases. And I find parents and I say, is it okay if I take a picture of your child? And they fill out the form. You have customers coming to your business. You want to take a picture. You want to have a testimonial. You want to use, make sure that you're using photo releases. These 2, the parent of the young boy up front, and really you can't really even see his face, but still she's given us permission to use this. And the woman below was looking at monarch eggs landing on milkweed. So these are okay to use. So it's very, very important, and particularly when you're taking pictures of minor children, they must have a photo release. You could get a parent come back and say, well, I never said you could use that. I never said you could put that on Twitter. And then you'd be in a lot of trouble because you're dealing with minors. So you do want to use photo releases. This is another thing that we do when we have big events. This was just a big poster. And we make these, we have them all, we use like the real estate signs, you know, the little corrugated plastic, and we stick them on the ground. And then I take pictures of those in those locations. So that we're saying, hey, this is a public event. We've invited you. You've decided to come. There's going to be some pictures being taken here. And we also do it in Spanish because in our particular location, we have Spanish, quite a few Spanish-speaking constituents. So you want to cater this to your community, but having something like this around at events, you could even put something like this on a registration brochure, letting people know there's going to be images taken here. There's going to be footage. There's going to be some B-roll shot, some video. Let them know ahead of time, and let them know at the place. But then I'm meandering around taking photographs. And then this is what I have. This is what the University of Delaware uses. So I print these out three across, and then I cut them. This is the adult model release, and this is the minor model release. So this is what we use. Check with your attorneys. Check, you can get these forms online. But I travel around with them. They're in my car. They're in my trunk. And when I'm covering a big event, I keep these so that I can take pictures like I showed you earlier and use them. Again, finding content you can use. You can go back to Creative Commons again to look for music. And they also have CC Mixter here too. So this is where you can go if you want to have music that you can use for your video. If any of you have ever used iTunes, they come with a series of, the desktop version, a series of 30 or 40 jingles that you can use, and those are usually fine. Sometimes Facebook or YouTube will misinterpret them, but you just have to, if they challenge you, you have to say, I got that from iTunes. But you cannot use a song that you purchased on iTunes. An example, my grandson is, for every birthday, I've done a video. So I've done these 3, he's going to be 4 next week. I've done a video for every single one of his birthdays, and I've put music to it. Last year, I wasn't thinking. I used Here Comes the Sun by George Harrison, or the Beatles, and I just wanted to share it to his parents. And it's so much easier just to upload it to Facebook than I'll have to Dropbox it. Facebook immediately rejected it, and then I had one of those, I should have had a V8 moments where I tap my head and go, of course, it's copyrighted. I bought the song for $1.29, but I can't use it. That's only for personal use. The other thing about audio is to understand that royalty-free is not free. What royalty-free music is music that you would buy, and you can buy it on iTunes for 99 cents to $1.29. There are other sites, and I just wanted to show you here. There's all of these different websites here that you can access. And you buy the song, you buy the rights to it, and you buy it once. And some are monthly subscriptions, some are per song. You have to weed through that. But once you download that song and you put it to your video, that's fine. You don't have to pay anything more for it ever. You own the rights to replay it without having to pay royalties. But you have to still give attribution. And this was something that I didn't know. So a couple of the videos that I did for the university, I bought the royalty-free music. I put it on the video. Nobody said anything. But I had to go back in and under the descriptions, add song by Chad Redfield and the name of the song and where I got it from. Because he's still the artist, he still deserves to have that recognition. So he makes a little bit, so royalty free is not free. My understanding of the law is if you are out at a restaurant and you're filming an event and there's ambient music coming over the speakers, that's a little different. You haven't downloaded that. It's just in the background, elevator music, what have you, that's okay to use. But sometimes, depending on the clarity of it, if you're going to upload it to Facebook or YouTube, they may challenge it. So it's good to understand that. This is a shot of iTunes. I just go on here and search for royalty-free music. And there's just thousands and thousands of pages of content. And you listen to them and you decide whether you like them or not, whether they would fit into your video production. When in doubt, you can also look for public domain music, and this works the same way as it would work for photographs. You don't have to give any attribution to it. So you would go into something like SoundCloud, which I access from creativecommons.org, and I would search for the hashtag public domain. And then it just started giving me a list of music that I could use in my background of my video. If you find something that if you've been infringed upon or if you've done the infringement, you may receive a digital takedown notice. It's called the DMCA Act, and that is where you will ask a provider to take down that you've infringed on my copyright. And normally, 9 times out of 10, you take it down, and that's the end of the story. They're not going to sue you. Most people don't know. They don't know the law, but ignorance of the law is not an excuse. So if someone says you need to take that down, take it down. This happened to me. And so what happened is I have a website. This was my master's degree project, and I analyzed the immigration cartoons that Thomas Nast drew of Chinese Americans during the Chinese Exclusion Act era. This site's received close to 250,000 views. It's very popular. The current political situation really has made this very popular because it talks about immigration and walls, and I'm not making any judgments. I'm just saying. And what happened is you do want to occasionally look for, you want to search, you want to Google yourself, Google your intellectual property and see what comes up, because I got a hit and I went onto the web, and then this is the current banner, and I originally used this banner up here and then I switched it. And the reason I show you that is because I came across this website and she just lifted my work. She called it Illustrating Chinese Exclusion. So when I searched, I said, I want to see how my results are working on Google. I saw this right underneath it. I went, what the heck is that? And this was a Weebly site. You've heard of Weebly or Wix. They're free sites. And here was someone who lifted my title, lifted my banner. She's several paragraphs at a time, my narrative, my work, never gave me attribution, didn't cite me. Not only did she not give me attribution, my work gives people attribution. It's academically cited. I use the MLA. She removed my attribution, my citation. She removed my academic citation. I couldn't believe it. And I was like, oh my gosh, well, why do I care? Well, if people are going to search for immigration history of the United States, the Chinese Exclusion Act, my content comes up almost right away. Well, if she's borrowing whole paragraphs of my content, then she's going to start getting credit for it. Her website, she could be selling, I don't monetize my blog, but she could be doing that and taking business away from me. So I went on to Weebly and I issued, they have it right there, a DMCA order. And within 24 hours, this was all gone. And now I tried to search for it. It lingered around, and when you clicked on it, it just said, I got a 404 message. Now it's not even there anymore. So Weebly acted very responsibly, but there is repercussions for people who are infringing on your work. You can ask them to take that down. And so this was an example of where she just took my words and she copied other people's works too. It was just terrible. It's just awful. So you have to be really careful of that. You may be told that if you would like to borrow somebody's work, and they may say, no, you can't. You still might be able to use it under fair use. And fair use is applies to copyrighted material. It doesn't apply to public domain. Obviously, public domain, it's up for grabs. But fair use is a legal exception to the exclusive rights that the owner has for his or her copyrighted work. Fair use, and there's actually 4 steps that you can go, but in so many words, if you're using information to benefit the public, if you're using to make reviews, or you're doing an article on a business or a situation, if you're using it for education, this is where extension comes in a little bit. If you're using it for scholarship or for commentary, in my website on Thomas Nast, most of my scans are original, but I did use a little bit from the Ohio State University. They had an image there I needed. I gave them attribution, but I used it clearly in a scholarly fashion, and so that was okay. You can also use if you are transforming the work, and this is where people now with YouTube, if you're using parody, or if you are doing your version of Here Comes the Sun on the guitar, that's a way for you to say, here's me playing that song, not your charity. And that estate can't come back and say you are copywriting, you're infringing on the copyright. But then people will say to me, well, I go on YouTube all the time and hear copyrighted music, and you do. You can go on there now and download The Who, or download videos that are not posted by the artist. They've put their own slides behind the songs, so they've transformed it a little bit. I don't know how they get away with it, other than there's just so many. Artists will guard their intellectual copyrighted property differently, but you may be asked to take it down, but certain ones stay up, and it's clearly copyrighted and nobody says anything. So you can say, some people work around that by saying, here's where you can buy the song. But when you're dealing with copyrighted music, it is an infringement. YouTube has, so here's the, according to Stylebook, fair use takes into consideration your purpose, the nature of the copyrighted material, the amount of material you are using. If you're quoting a line from someone's copyrighted material, it's a lot different than if you're reproducing an entire website's content and not getting permission. The other thing that goes back to infringement would be that I was asked one time, can I take somebody's blog and share it on my blog? And if you're copying all the text and you're putting it on there, you're confusing Google. So in other words, if I had something very specific to say and you're saying it also on your blog, then your website's going to come up in the Google search, not mine. And so you're much better off saying, hey, I found this really great website on Chinese immigration. Here's the link. And forward traffic that way than just reproducing my stuff and saying, oh, well, and we got all this from this website. I don't know if I'm making any sense there, but you have to be really careful. So when someone comes back at you, they're going to say, you can quote somebody, but you can't just put paragraphs and paragraphs of somebody's work in a digital realm today because of the searchability factors. You're going to dilute traffic away from the original person. You're going to cause that person harm. If I were being monetized, that would move traffic away from me, and it's my work, so shouldn't I get the benefit of that web traffic? And how transformative it is. Did you really alter it in a creative way and made it your own? Then people will say, okay, yeah, fair use, we may let that go. So that picture of that horse, that's okay. It was copyrighted, but her work looks so much different we might just let that go. So this is decided on a case-by-case basis, and it's by no means clear. So things to consider is making sure it's copyrighted. Do give attribution, and when doing so, provide the link. Request permission. Most of the people that I've ever talked to have always said, sure, be my pleasure, no problem. Try to be consistent with how you source. I wanted to show you here about credit and SEO strategy. Here, no one will ever search. So if you've uploaded from your phone or from Facebook, your picture will get a number. This is what the Nikon does, DSC 1034. So if you're uploading, if you have a website, if you have a blog, you always want to change the name of the image before you upload it. So in other words, that picture of ice cream, instead of calling it DSC 1034, I would call it Honeycrisp Apples or Delaware Vanilla ice cream, because that becomes a searchable term, and you want to think the way that the end user is using it. Do you want your pictures to show up in a search engine result? Do you want your pictures of, if you have a vineyard in Oregon, do you want that image to come up? Because when people see that, they find it on Google, they often will go to your website to learn more about it. So this is a great way to connect an image to your website. So you want to fill out as many tags as possible. You want to fill out all the descriptions, whether you're on Blogger or WordPress, or you're using Dreamweaver or Joomla or Drupal. You want to fill out all that information as much as you can on the image, because that becomes the back end. That's what Google and Bing and those other search engines are looking for. If you've called it DSC 1034 and you've not put any other information in that image, then there's no trigger for them to connect that image to your website, and you lose some SEO from that. So it's really important how you name your images if you want people to find your content easier. This is an example here of when I've uploaded a picture on, so this is a picture I took of a Buckeye butterfly on a purple coneflower. So when I went into Flickr, I changed the name to Buckeye butterfly on purple coneflower. I also put for more information, and I put our website. Every time your website appears as a link somewhere, it helps your search engine optimization. People can go right now and find more about the Master Gardeners. I've relaxed the license on this one, so people could use this. Some rights reserved, so people could share this and share alike. That's what those two symbols mean. It means, yeah, you can share this and you can change it up a little bit if you want to. I didn't say anything about derivatives here. You could turn this into a black and white, but if you do that, make sure you put it on as share and share alike. So that's what that means. They have to honor your original license, and they can play with it and do what they want with it, but they have to share it in the same way. But look at the tags I've added to this. Tattered, native plants, nature, July, you go on down the list, Delaware Cooperative Extension. I'm thinking the way someone who may not even be interested in extension, they may not even know what cooperative extension is. They're just looking for a butterfly picture to put on their blog. And they come here and they go, oh, this is extension. I'm going to find out a little bit more about them. So people search for things and come to your website and come to who you are, your business, through accidental means. You can increase the chances of that happening by labeling and by tagging ahead of time and bringing it on. Now, this would also, I could tag this weather beaten, worn out. These are all images because it certainly is tattered looking. But I hope you get the idea that this is why the images can really be drivers to your website. Here's something on YouTube. I just wanted to show you. We had an agent pass away last year, and I did a memorial video for him, and we put it up on the web. That was our way of announcing of his passing. I uploaded it to YouTube. I downloaded the music through our university's account that they have for sound. And I didn't, there wasn't any credits on this. It was just all about Bill. And about 5 months into it, there was a claim, and all of a sudden I saw ads on this. And here someone had claimed copyright on it. And there is a way for content to YouTube to work. If you think your music or your images have been used without permission, you find out that one of your photographs is in somebody's video and you didn't give them permission, you can go in here and you can do a claim. You can ask for it to be taken down, or you could say, well, instead of blocking the video, I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to claim copyright on part of this and I want to monetize it. And that's what this person did. They said, hey, that's my song and I want to charge you for it. So I want to make money off of it. If you're going to use it, then I'm going to at least benefit from it. That's how that worked. And I went, whoa, 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 whoa. We had permission to use this. So I challenged the claim and they backed off of it. And then I went in later just to make sure and said, here's the music we used and here it is. And everything's been fine since. So there, you do have some recourse with YouTube. So I think I've gone way over my time frame here, or not too bad. But here are some resources. The link on the YouTube, learning about how that works. For media law, the sarahfhawkins.com, excellent, excellent website. Of course, the U.S. copyright. And then yesterday, and I took this, it's an hour course. This is a free course on online media. They have some great games and quizzes on there, and they give you some actual case history. So I took that yesterday. I figured, well, at least I could say I took that course. And so really super, super content there for you to use. And with that, I'm going to see if we have any questions. So I'm going to stop the share and see if we don't have any questions. So there's 32 comments. We'll open that up. So, and sorry for the little mix up there with the tech for a little bit. All right. All right, so we're going to go here to, because that's for Zoom coordinator. Let's see if I see, people are just saying who they are here. I'm just reading some of the comments.
Yeah, Michelle, I've been monitoring, and
okay.
I think we've had most of the questions answered within. A lot of people were sharing different photo type apps that they use. Someone was asking about how you disable the right click. And then there was another one about the EXIF ID you mentioned in an app.
Yes, the EXIF, the right click, I would have to do some research on it. I know that when I went on to the Better Homes and Garden, I couldn't right click on that, at least from so there is a way to do that, and I'm going to actually have to research that. I'm sure if you Google and you say, how could I disable a photograph from being downloaded, there's probably something that you would do. On Flickr, you can prevent the photos from being downloaded. So that's just a matter of your settings in a Flickr account. But when something's online, I'm not sure how that, I think in Facebook, there's a way to say, don't allow my pictures to be downloaded. So for the EXIF app, it's called EXIF Editor, and that's EXIF EDITOR. And that will allow you to import a photograph, and then you could go in there and add in additional information such as who to contact, how to find out any kind of further information that you would want. It would just be embedded in the back. Most people don't know how to look for that, by the way. They will, if you right click on an image, let me see if I can share a screen and show you what I'm talking about. We're looking at It's not gonna let me do it. I have to get out of my whole PowerPoint here. I was gonna try and show you, let's see here, share screen. If you right click on any image you find on the internet, I got so much stuff on my, okay. So now I'm going to share my screen. Share screen. Okay, so this is Sarah Hawkins' website, by the way, and it's just a really fantastic resource. If I click on her and right click, I can inspect this image. I can copy it and save it. So I think what you're talking about here is being able to disable that. And I'm not really certain of that. But if you inspect the picture, it's going to give you a lot of the back-end information on the photo. The other program that I like to use a lot is called Adobe Bridge. I'm bringing this up for you to look at. If you have an Adobe product at all, Photoshop, then you probably have Adobe Bridge. It usually comes with the Adobe product line as a bonus. And that has a really great way of adding metadata to a photograph. So if I click on my desktop, and I'm going to see if I can just grab a photo. All right, so the photo today that we used for the sponsor slide. So I'm going to open that up. And here, it gives me all this information. So I could go in here and say, okay, here's the image, all of that information, but I can go on here and add instructions, a credit source, copyright unknown. I can go in here and say, here's my email, here's my phone number for the creator. So I could put that information into the back end of it before I go to upload it. And it's just a way of, but are people going to know to look for that? But it would be there so that if the image did get passed around a lot, I could add meta tags to this, anything. So for instance, this one of the horse that I took, I can go in here and say that it's, Michelle Walfred, and what program see it already has listed it. I used Tangled FX and the date that I did that. And so it's got Tangled already put that in when I ran it through Tangled, but I can go in there and take that out if I wanted to. I could go in there, and that's the only problem with these EXIF programs, that you can also remove copyrighted material and metadata on there. So that's something to consider too. But it is a way of kind of rubber stamping your intellectual property for sure. The main thing for those of you who are in extension that are listening in is that if you went on to University of Delaware's website and grabbed a copyrighted photo, and you have a grain marketing meeting and you've got agronomists in there or something like that, and you put it up on a PowerPoint and you're showing it to those people, it's probably okay. That's fair use. I've had instructors at college copy a chapter of a book. The book had 22 chapters and it was $100. They didn't want their students to have to pay $150 for one chapter that they wanted them to read. So they will take that book and they will Xerox it and they will bring it back in and give it to the students. That's normally considered fair use. So it's when that PowerPoint that you presented to your extension colleagues gets uploaded to the web, and where it could be then shared by hundreds or thousands of people and possibly copied or screenshotted, then you've put that image out into circulation beyond the educational, your original educational intent. So that's what I would be careful of. But most of the time, extension shares amongst amongst itself everywhere all the time, but you could do it without asking, but you should always, when you do that, always put the attribution in. Hope that makes sense.
Michelle, the last thing that we heard a couple throughout was that many extension people were having promotional pieces that they either charge for or use photos for. So if they're, like this one question here says promoting an event and use someone's logo from their promotional materials. How would you recommend within extension that we do that? Especially when the meeting itself may cost.
So I'm trying to think if you could give me an example.
So if we're having a master gardener, the long master gardener training,
right,
and it costs, you know, a couple $100, and we've got some photos that we used on the flyer for promotional activities.
I see that you could argue that it's fair use because you're using it for educational purposes. Ultimately, there's a tuition being paid to attend that workshop.
Right.
If you can use original photographs, you should. You should. I will have people, I've had someone from the Delaware Nature Society call me once and say, or, hey, Michelle, you have a picture of a black swallowtail that we really would love to have on our cover. Would that be okay? And I'll say, fine, that's not a problem, because it's a nonprofit. I think that to me sounds like it would be fair use, because if you're charging for the event, but if the charge is for you to cover costs for putting on an educational program,
right,
as opposed, you're not making money off of it. And if those people are sponsors or if you're using any of their products, but whenever possible, try to use your own photographs. Try to borrow one from maybe a like-minded source. That would be where UMD might say, hey, Michelle, we don't have a really good poultry house. I saw that Jenny Rhodes was on here. Jenny had some really beautiful photographs taken of poultry houses. I think it was her farm. I would love to use them. She, oh, sure. She emailed them to me. So now I can use them if we're going to have a poultry event. But it's good to ask, because I might not have some really good shots. I had the News Journal guy call me, and he was looking for a picture of a ladybug, and he's doing a story on, and he just didn't have the time or the energy to go out and try and find the ladybug. And so he asked one of us, do you have a picture of a ladybug we can use? And we had one, we gave it to him. So yeah, you have to think of the purpose. But if you were going to use a picture from someone else's site and you're clearly making money for it, or if I took a picture of somebody else's celebrity and I'm trying to ride off of that, and I'm selling ads on my website as a result of this fantastic photograph, that's when to me it becomes a little bit more unethical. So somebody's saying here, so basically anytime I add a photo to anywhere, add metadata tags. Well, if you want to, it's time consuming. You know, if you want to, it's just, people are going to steal things. I mean, I'm sure that my images are appearing unattributed all over the place, but I do occasionally go in and check on behalf of the University of Delaware to see if anybody's using an image. But I think for extension purposes, pictures of insects, flowers, anything where you could be cataloging a species or a product. For those of you who are involved in growing fruit and vegetables, if that was my business, I would be taking pictures of peppers and tomatoes and broccoli every which way. I'd be labeling them. I'd be putting them onto a Flickr account. I would put every description with the URL to my website, so that for more information about our produce, I would be doing that because it's going to, when people are searching then for, do you want that, if someone's going to blog about how nutritious broccoli is, do you want them using an iStock photo, or would you rather them mention your business? I would rather them say, courtesy of Delaware Cooperative Extension, than having it say, courtesy of Wikipedia. Why not? It would just be, it's good exposure. But you can only do that with like inanimate objects. You can't do it with people.
Great.
So I don't,
How can we check to see if someone is using their images? Is there a way to?
no good way. What you can do is you can go onto Google and search for what you originally search for what it is. So I could go on here and let me just here share my screen again. So I could go on here. Obviously, my pictures of Honeycrisp apples has been used and it's been accredited to me. But if I typed in here Honeycrisp apples and hit search, and then I could go into Google Images, and you would see all these pictures, and these are all just any pictures that were labeled Honeycrisp will show up here. If you have a award-winning shot of Honeycrisp apples, but you called it apples or fruit or image 0013, it's not going to show up here. So when people see it, a photograph like this, and they can click on it, and then of course it takes them to here's the website. Would you like to go to that website? And I will tell you from my Thomas Nass site, I will tell you, I probably have 60,000 hits just that have come to my website alone because they went through Google Images first. So this is a really good site. The other thing you do is if you are going to and this is what people do, they get it, they go like this, they copy it, they call it what they want, and off they go with it, and they're not giving this person any kind of attribution. But you would just have to go through here and look and see whether or not your picture is there. That's mine. And then you would say, whoa, who's using it? So that's what you have to do. It will help if you've had those meta tags in the background, you possibly could find it because you've put that meta tag in there. But you could get a little crazy with it. I don't make my money off of my photographs, so if somebody uses it, okay, but it's nice if they give me attribution. But you know, people are gonna, even if you don't do the right click, you could click on this. Here's that's Amazon. It's probably not a good. I could click on this image here. All right, now it's going to be hateful. My computer's slow. There you go. So I click on this image. I want to view the image. Excuse me. And even if that was disabled, and it isn't, but if that were disabled, I could still take a screenshot of it and crop it. So there's just no way around it. If somebody's bent on stealing it and poaching it, there's not much you can do. It's just part of the territory. But the whole purpose of this is that we all like to share out to other people that if you are going to use an image, how to do it right, it takes very little. I personally like it seen under a caption as opposed to the bottom of the page. Bloggers will do it differently, but I like having the credit right under the photograph. So this would be like apples, photos by Shannon Dill, UMD, or Flickr, or wherever I got it from, and possibly either her name or UMD would be hyperlinked to the original where I found this original. And that would be the proper way to cite that. Let's see if we have any other questions.
Yeah, there's some great comments in here about Google Images and some metadata, how to do that. So that's great. At this point, Michelle, do you want me to go ahead and stop recording?
Sure, sure. You can
Okay.
stop recording and I'll